Arin stood at the edge of the ancient temple, his heart pounding as the echoes of the prophecy filled his mind. The Temple of Shadows loomed before him, an ominous structure that seemed to breathe with the weight of centuries. The wind whispered through the cracks in the stone, carrying with it secrets of the past that were both tantalizing and terrifying. He had uncovered the first piece of the puzzle, an ancient key that glowed with a faint, golden light. But as he held it, he knew that this was only the beginning. The path ahead was shrouded in darkness, both literally and metaphorically, and the trials he would face were unlike anything he had ever imagined. The entrance to the temple was guarded by two massive statues, carved from the same dark stone as the temple itself. They depicted ancient warriors, their faces hidden beneath helms of shadow, their eyes glowing with a faint, eerie light. As Arin approached, the statues seemed to come to life, their heads slowly turning to follow his movements. The air grew colder, and the shadows around him seemed to deepen. With every step he took, the sense of foreboding grew stronger. The key in his hand pulsed with warmth, guiding him forward, but his every instinct screamed at him to turn back. Yet he knew he could not. The prophecy had chosen him, and there was no turning back. Taking a deep breath, Arin raised the key to the lock on the temple door. The moment the key touched the metal, a surge of energy shot through him, and the door began to creak open. A low, rumbling sound echoed through the temple, like the awakening of some ancient beast. The inside of the temple was pitch dark, the air thick with the scent of damp stone and something older, something almost alive. As Arin stepped inside, the door slammed shut behind him with a deafening crash, sealing him in. His heart raced, but he steadied himself, focusing on the faint glow of the key in his hand. Suddenly, torches along the walls burst into flame, one by one, illuminating the massive chamber. The walls were covered in ancient carvings and murals, depicting scenes of battles long past and figures shrouded in mystery. At the far end of the chamber stood a massive stone altar, and atop it, an ancient book bound in leather as dark as the night sky. Arin approached the altar cautiously, his eyes scanning the room for any signs of danger. The book called to him, its pages fluttering as if moved by an unseen wind. As he reached out to touch it, the ground beneath his feet began to tremble. The carvings on the walls seemed to come to life, the figures within them shifting and moving, their eyes glowing with an eerie light. Without warning, the floor beneath him gave way, and Arin fell into darkness. The world around him spun, and for a moment, he was weightless, free falling into the unknown. But just as suddenly as it began, the fall ended, and he landed hard on a cold stone floor. Groaning, Arin pushed himself up, his body aching from the impact. He was in another chamber, this one even larger than the last. The walls were covered in thick vines, and the air was heavy with moisture. A dim green light emanated from the far end of the chamber, casting eerie shadows on the walls. As Arin approached the source of the light, he saw it was coming from a massive, glowing crystal embedded in the wall. The crystal pulsed with a steady rhythm, like the heartbeat of the temple itself. Surrounding it were dozens of statues, similar to those at the entrance, but these were smaller, almost lifelike in their detail. Suddenly, the statues began to move, their stone limbs cracking and shifting as they came to life. Their eyes glowed with the same green light as the crystal, and they turned their gaze towards Arin. He braced himself for a fight, but instead of attacking, the statues formed a circle around him, their movements synchronized as if guided by a single mind. The crystal's light intensified, and the ground beneath Arin began to tremble once more. The circle of statues began to rotate around him, faster and faster, until they became a blur of stone and light. Arin felt the energy building around him, a force unlike anything he had ever experienced. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the movement stopped. The statues froze in place. The light from the crystal dimmed, and the chamber fell into an eerie silence. Arin stood in the center of the circle, breathing heavily, unsure of what had just happened. But before he could catch his breath, a voice echoed through the chamber, deep and resonant, filling the space with its power. "Who dares to awaken the guardians of the Temple of Shadows?" The voice boomed. It seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once, reverberating off the walls and echoing in Arin's mind. "Speak, mortal, or be consumed by the darkness you have unleashed." Arin swallowed hard, his mouth dry as he tried to find his voice. "I am Arin, a warrior of Elaria," he said, his voice trembling slightly. "I seek the power of the Forgotten Crown to fulfill the prophecy and save my kingdom." The voice was silent for a moment, as if considering his words. Then it spoke again, this time softer, but no less powerful. "The path you have chosen is fraught with peril, Arin of Elaria. Many have tried, and all have failed. The crown you seek is a burden as much as it is a gift. To claim it, you must prove yourself worthy. The first trial," the voice continued, "is one of knowledge. Before you lies a riddle, ancient and unsolved. Answer it correctly, and you may proceed. Fail, and the shadows will claim you." A low rumbling filled the chamber, and in the center of the circle of statues, a stone pedestal rose from the ground. Upon it was a scroll, its parchment aged and fragile, yet the writing on it was clear and sharp. Arin carefully picked up the scroll, unrolling it with trembling hands. The riddle written on it was simple, yet perplexing. "I speak without a mouth and hear without ears. I have no body, but I come alive with wind. What am I?" He stared at the words, his mind racing. The answer danced at the edge of his thoughts, just out of reach. He knew that the wrong answer could mean his end, yet he had to try. He closed his eyes, focusing on the words, and then it came to him. "A shadow," Arin whispered, his voice barely audible. "The answer is a shadow." The chamber was silent for a moment, and then the voice spoke again, this time with a tone of approval. "You are correct, Arin of Elaria. You have passed the first trial. But be warned, the trials ahead are far more dangerous. Prepare yourself, for the true test is yet to come." Suddenly, the chamber began to shift once more. The floor beneath Arin's feet rumbled, and the walls seemed to close in on him. The statues, once silent sentinels, turned their heads toward him, their eyes glowing with renewed intensity. The ground cracked open, revealing a spiral staircase leading down into the depths of the temple. Taking a deep breath, Arin descended the staircase, each step echoing in the darkness. The air grew colder the deeper he went, and the light from the crystal above dimmed until it was barely more than a flicker. At the bottom of the stairs, he found himself in a narrow corridor, the walls lined with more carvings and symbols that seemed to pulse with a faint light. The corridor led to a large chamber, dimly lit by flickering torches. At the center of the room was a circular pool of water, its surface perfectly still. The water reflected the carvings on the walls, which depicted a swirling vortex of shadows, as if the very essence of darkness had been captured in stone. As Arin approached the pool, the water began to ripple, and a figure slowly emerged from it. The figure was tall and slender, with features obscured by a cloak of shadows. Its eyes glowed with an otherworldly light, and its presence filled the chamber with a sense of dread. The figure spoke, its voice a low whisper that seemed to echo through the air. "You have come far, Arin of Elaria, but the true test lies ahead. To claim the crown, you must confront the darkness within yourself." As the figure spoke, the chamber around them began to change. The walls faded into darkness, and the floor beneath Arin's feet seemed to dissolve, leaving him standing in a void. The only thing visible was the figure before him, its eyes glowing brighter as it stepped closer. Arin felt a cold dread wash over him, but he stood his ground, knowing that this was the test the figure had spoken of. The figure halted a few steps away from Arin, its voice cutting through the silence. "The crown you seek is not merely a symbol of power. It is a mirror to the soul. To claim it, you must face your greatest fear, your deepest regret. Only by confronting the darkness within can you emerge victorious." As the figure spoke, the void around them shifted once more, and Arin found himself in a familiar place, a battlefield littered with the fallen. He recognized it immediately. It was the site of his greatest failure, the battle where he had lost countless comrades, and where his own brother had fallen. Arin dropped to his knees, the weight of his guilt crushing him. He could see the faces of the fallen, hear their cries, feel the despair that had gripped him that day. His brother's lifeless body lay nearby, a stark reminder of the price he had paid. The shadowy figure watched him, its eyes piercing through the haze of sorrow. "You cannot change the past, Arin," the figure said, its voice softer now, almost sympathetic. "But you can accept it, learn from it, and let it strengthen you. Only by embracing your pain can you move forward." With great effort, Arin rose to his feet, his breath heavy and labored. The battlefield around him was still, the silence deafening. He took a deep breath and forced himself to speak. "I cannot change what happened here," he said, his voice breaking. "But I will not let this guilt consume me any longer. I will honor their memory by continuing to fight for what is right." As Arin spoke, the battlefield began to fade, the fallen soldiers dissolving into the darkness. The shadowy figure nodded in approval, its glowing eyes dimming slightly as if acknowledging Arin's resolve. "You have faced the darkness within you, and you have emerged stronger." The second trial is complete. The void that had surrounded them gradually transformed into the familiar interior of the temple. The statues returned to their places, and the green crystal's light brightened once more, casting a serene glow over the chamber. The shadowy figure began to dissolve, its form becoming less distinct, but its voice lingered in the air. "The final trial awaits, Arin of Elaria. You have proven your knowledge and your strength of will. Now, you must prove your heart. Beyond this chamber lies the path to the crown, but it is not one you can walk alone. Choose your companions wisely, for only together can you overcome the final challenge." Arin took a moment to gather his thoughts. He knew the importance of the figure's words. This final trial would not be one of brute strength or clever thinking alone. It would require trust, cooperation, and understanding. He thought of Lyra and the others, waiting for him outside the temple. He would need their help to face whatever lay ahead. With renewed determination, Arin turned toward the chamber's entrance, ready to face the final trial. As he stepped forward, the shadowy figure's final words echoed in his mind. "Remember, Arin, the strength of a king lies not in his power, but in his ability to inspire and lead those around him." Arin exited the chamber and found Lyra, Eldrick, and Nia waiting for him, their expressions filled with concern and relief. "The trials are nearly complete," Arin said, his voice steady. "But the final challenge lies ahead, and I cannot face it alone. Will you stand with me?" Without hesitation, the three nodded, their trust in Arin unwavering. Together, they prepared to enter the final chamber, where the crown of shadows awaited. Whatever the challenge, Arin knew that with his companions by his side, they would face it as one. With his friends by his side, Arin stepped into the darkness, ready to face whatever the final trial had in store. The path was uncertain, the dangers unknown, but together they would claim the crown and fulfill their destiny. And so Arin and his companions moved forward, united in purpose, ready to face the final trial that would determine the fate of the Forgotten Kingdom. Will they triumph and restore Elaria? Or will they fall to the shadows? Follow them on their final quest to fight and save Elaria in the final episode of the Forgotten Kingdom. Please subscribe for more stories like this.